Hi, my name is Grant Brusco, and I serve as the lead pastor of the Summit community. We're so grateful that you are engaging with this resource. We hope that you find it encouraging, challenging, and inspiring to you in your faith as you're following Jesus. We are a community of people who are hungry for and passionately pursuing the presence of God on earth as it is in heaven. And we believe that that is best done in the context of community with other people to support and be there in the journey. So this is intended to be supplemental, not a primary substance of you seeking Jesus. If there's anything that we can do to help you take your next step with Jesus, because we believe everyone has a next step with Jesus, please reach out to us and let us know how we could serve you in that way. And we hope that the Word blesses you.
Well, we are in a series entitled The Way and the Water. And it's all about seeing the significance of water in the Bible. And as I was thinking about today and what I wanted to share and all this stuff, my mind went back to the whole fact, and it kind of brought back a bunch of memories. My life has always had water as a component in my life. I tried to find a little photo of me when I was really quite young, when my mom pushed me in the lake, and there's a photo of me out on the dock in the pier and walking back. I have a little flip-flop in my hand, and I am livid. But I learned to love the water. One of the things that happened as a result of that is, early on, I always like to ask people, what sport did I do? Well, you did football, and you did basketball. I was a swimmer, and a lot of people don't know that. And in 1972, at our state meet in Wisconsin, I swam right next to, in the 100-yard freestyle, Jim Montgomery. And unless you're really a sports buff, you don't probably get it, but Jim Montgomery was the first guy to ever break 50 seconds in the 100-yard freestyle. And I just broke a sweat. That's all it was. Because we actually were coming into the wall, and he was coming back already. And it was humiliating, and it was the thing. It really doesn't have anything to do with Bible today, but it was my water story, so I wanted to do that. There's going to be quite a bit of storytelling today, considering kind of the work of God in the life of Moses and around his life as well. And hopefully then kind of piecing together what that all has to do with you and with me and our lives and who we are. And so I want to set precedent up front. All of these accounts in the life of Moses share something in common. There's this element of impossibility, some kind of impossible moments connected with water. Similar to the impossibility of me beating Jim Montgomery, and I'm still bitter about it. But my situation at that point wasn't life and death. We're looking at some very serious things in the life of Moses, in the life of the people of God, the Jewish people. And I want to approach each one of these accounts with a mindset. Situations that seem impossible become possible. And the solution behind every one of these impossible situations revolves around just two words, two of my favorite words, one of my favorite phrases in all of the Bible. It's repeated several times, and it's simple and it's totally profound at the same time, and it's just this: but God. But God. When we look just previous to Moses' life, we see it in the life of Joseph, whose brothers sold him into slavery into Egypt. And the book of Acts tells us basically that they sold him into Egypt, but God was with him and rescued him. And later on, Joseph, of course, is blessed by God, and he becomes kind of the number 2 guy in all of Egypt, and he saves the people from a famine, and he does all this stuff. And at one point, his brothers come to him because they need food during the famine. They don't recognize him. They don't know it's him. And this whole thing goes down. That's really, really cool. But Joseph basically looks at them once they recognizes him, and he says, you know what? You intended all of that for evil, but God meant it for good. And that's what we're going to see consistently across all of these accounts, this foundational idea, okay, that we're going to visit repeatedly this morning. Simply this: God will make a way when it seems like there's no way, okay? Jot it down. God will make a way where it seems like there's no way. And I'll keep that phrase in mind as we consider Moses. And I'm hoping we'll be able to be encouraged by the hand of God in some seemingly impossible circumstances. And so we're going to begin with the account of Moses' birth. And this story is classically used as a Mother's Day message. And it's not really as much about the life of Moses himself as about his mother's faith and her fearlessness. But it's one in a series of no way out situations in his life. Because in the natural, there's no way that this can turn out okay. And so in Exodus chapter 1, we are told that after Joseph, a new king comes into power who knows nothing about Joseph, knows nothing about what he's done, and he kind of takes over. And remembering what we know about Joseph, that it was impossible, but God was with him, and that's the situation. And he became this guy. But a lot of time has passed. Now this king just doesn't even know who he is. And so the king talks to the people, and he says, listen, the people of Israel now outnumber us. There's more of them than there is of us, and we have to make a plan to keep them from growing and spreading even more. Because if we don't, and if war breaks out, they're going to side with our enemies, and then they're going to escape from our country. And so this whole idea of multiplying that we see here in these people has its roots in blessing. This is God's promise being fulfilled. He told Abraham, your generations after you are going to grow, and they're going to multiply like sand, like the stars, and the whole thing. But the king sees it through the eyes of fear. He says there's so many of them that I'm pretty sure they're going to rise up against us. And this explosive growth is a threat to his security, even to his ego. And so he tells the Egyptians, you are actually going to be protecting the kingdom by cutting off their bloodline. And so he makes the Israelites slaves, and he does all of this stuff, and he just wants to wear them down just by crushing them with hard labor and all this stuff. And the more the Egyptians oppress the Jewish people, the more the Israelites multiply and spread, and then the more scared and alarmed the Egyptians become. So it says that they worked the Jewish people without mercy. They made their lives bitter. They forced them to make bricks and just work in the fields. And literally the word is that they were ruthless on them. They were ruthless with their demands. But they continue to grow. And so the king has to come up with something else to stop it. And so he goes to the two midwives for the Hebrew women, Shiphrah and Puah, and he says, now when you help these women when they give birth, watch what's going on, and if they deliver a boy, kill him. If it's a girl, you can let her live. But the midwives, it says, they feared God more than the king, and so they refused, and they allowed the boys to live as well. So the king gets all in distress. He calls for the two of the midwives. He goes, why are you doing this? I asked you what to do. Why do you allow the boys to live? And they basically say these Hebrew women are not like the Egyptian women. They're just a lot more, the word vigorous. They have their babies so quickly, we can't get there in time. So what just happened here? They lied. And this used to mess with my theology a little bit. God blessed them. And so it says God was good to those midwives. And the Israelites continued to multiply, growing more and more powerful. And because the midwives feared God, he blessed them. There it is. Now, did God bless them because they lied? No. is because they feared God, because they had his heart, his purposes in mind. So then Pharaoh's at wit's ends, and he gives this order to all the people. He says, I need you to throw every newborn Hebrew boy into the Nile River, but you can let the girls live. That's just terrible. I can't imagine. I can't even get my mind around what that was like and how frightened they would all be. So in chapter 2, it says that about that time, a man and a woman from the tribe of Levi got married. And they had a baby boy. And he was delivered, and when it says when she could no longer hide him, I suppose it could be crying, whatever the reason, she couldn't hide him, it says, anymore. And she makes a basket, and she lines the basket with pitch and tar, and she puts the baby in the basket, and she lays it in the thick reeds there along the shore of the Nile. And he says that she had his sister kind of stand at a distance and see what happens. Watch what goes down with this baby. And all of a sudden, Pharaoh, his daughter, comes down to bathe in the river, and the princess sees the basket hidden in all the reeds, and she sends her maid, go get the basket, and she opens it, and there's this little boy, and he's crying. And it says that she felt sorry for him. And she goes, this has got to be one of the Hebrew children. And so the baby's sister approaches the princess, and she says, I could find one of the Hebrew women who could nurse that baby for you. And she goes, great idea. That's really good thinking. Do that. And so she went, and she got the baby's mother. And the princess says, take this baby, nurse him for me, take care of him, and I'll pay you for your help. Do you love a little irony? And so the woman took the baby home, she nurses him, and later when he was older, she brings him back to Pharaoh's daughter. She adopts him as her own son, and she names him Moses because it has a sound in the original language. I lifted him out of the water. So what just happened? God just made a way where there seemed to be no way. Now, notice the subtle connection here. His mother technically obeyed the edict of Pharaoh to put every male child in the river, but she puts him in the protection of a waterproof basket. Now, just as an aside, who else had God protected from water within a vessel? Noah, his family. So this goes from impossible because the water is supposed to drown the baby to solution because the water now buoys him and floats him safely. God making a way out of no way in this realm of water. Moving ahead now, another event in the life of Moses involving water. After a number of years, God commissions Moses to free this nation of Israel from their slavery. And a lot has happened now between Moses and God and Pharaoh, and there's like 7 different things that go down to finally get Pharaoh to acquiesce and to let the people go. And now the people have been freed, and Moses is leading them. They're beginning their journey to a land that God promised them would be theirs. But after a while, they begin to realize Pharaoh's not keeping his side of the bargain, and his army is just bearing down on them. They know that they're coming. And so they've also come now to the shore of the Red Sea. And so they're like, what are we going to do? And God says to Moses, I just need you to lift your staff over the water, and it's going to divide, and you're going to be able to walk through the middle of the water. And after, a while, I'm going to show my glory. They're going to know who is the Lord. And so Moses does what he's told. The wind blows, and the water piles up on each side, and the people just walk through on dry land to safety. And the Egyptians, all of Pharaoh's chariots and horses and soldiers chase them. And they get to the middle of the sea, but just before dawn, it says that God looks down on the Egyptian army and he throws their forces into total confusion. They don't know what to do. All of a sudden, the ground softens again. Their chariots are getting stuck. They're freaking out, and they're getting twisted, and they can't drive. And they're like, we got to get out of here. We got to get away from these Israelites. And the Egyptians shouted, the Lord is fighting for them against Egypt. And so when they reach the other side, God says, Moses, lift your staff again, and the waters will rush back, and they're going to cover the Egyptians and their chariots. And the waters return, they cover all the chariots and all the things, and those that chased all the people, not one survives. And that's how God rescues Israel from the hand of the Egyptians that day. And it says when they saw the mighty power of the Lord had unleashed against the Egyptians, they were filled with awe before him. And they put their faith in the Lord and his servant Moses. So water has just brought all of their progress to a halt. Okay, they're running away. They get to the Red Sea. Death behind them. Right now, death before them. And the source of their chaos becomes their source of salvation. How? Because God makes a way where there seems to be no way. And then a while later after that, they're safe. They continue their journey. They're meandering in the desert, and they start complaining, and they start whining. The Jewish word would be kvetching. Man, things were better back there, you know. It was okay, and at least we had water when we were in captivity, and now we're thirsty and we're parched. And God comes to a rock, and he says to Moses, I just need you to strike the rock with your staff. And Moses does as he's instructed, and water flows out of the rock, just comes pouring out, this incredible blessing. Fast forward 10 years. The scene is kind of repeated again. The whining, the complaining, the thirst, the stuff. And God's going to provide for them again. But he changes up his methodology a little bit. And he instructs Moses, just speak to the rock. Just speak to the rock, and I'll provide water for the people. And so basically, he gathers all the people together, and he says, you bunch of rebellious, hard-necked people, and he just berates them, and he goes after them. What do I have to do? Bring water from this rock? And this whole thing. And so in anger, he hits the rock twice with his staff. And what happens? The water pours out. The water gushes forth. And it says that everybody and their livestock drank to their fill. But then God says to Moses, because you didn't trust me enough to demonstrate my holiness to the people of Israel, you won't lead them into the land that I'm going to give them. This whole journey thing isn't working out very well. And now they're thirsty again, and it doesn't go to plan. But again, God comes through and he makes a way where there seems to be none. But Moses is angry with the people, and they're whining and they're complaining. And so instead of speaking to the rock, he strikes the rock. And here's the thing. The water still came out. God blessed the people. He provides for them. He provides for all of their animals. But then he basically tells Moses, listen, I wasn't mad at the people. You were mad at the people. And you misrepresented me to them. Just kind of as an aside, two quick thoughts when I think about this. Don't ever make people think that God is mad at them when he isn't. There are people that are doing that. They make people think God's mad, and he's not mad at them. The other thing is, don't listen to the people who act like God is mad. Don't pay attention to that. Anyway, Moses is going to experience some severe consequences. He won't be going with the people that he's leading into the land. Now, moving ahead again, after a long time, they actually make it toward the promised land. And God tells Moses, I want you to go up on this peak, and I want you to look over that land in every direction. Take a good look. But you don't get to cross the Jordan River and go into the land with the people. And instead, I want you to commission Joshua. I want you to encourage him. I want you to strengthen him. And he's going to lead the people across the Jordan into that land. And he's going to give them all the land that you see as their possession. And so it says that Moses says we stayed then in the valley. And he's right there. He's finally looking at all of it. But he's separated from it by water. He is unable to get over the Jordan. And God says, you're not going to get over the Jordan. So we have seen so many ways that God has proven himself faithful to them, keeping them, rescuing them, providing for them, creating a way out of no way. Amazing events. 3 of them, amazing. But the 4th one ends with a bummer. And we've seen that God makes a way where there seems to be no way. Trouble and difficulty and enemies, but God. And we're kind of left hanging here. We don't really know what happens to Moses after this. How's God going to rectify his sin, his disobedience? All we know is that he got to the river and he wasn't allowed to cross. So, where does all of that bring us? Simply this. And we pick it up in Joshua chapter 3. Moses has now died. Basically, it says God waited and Moses died, and he tells Joshua, you're the guy, and you're going to do this. And they come to the banks of the Jordan. More water, more water. And God tells Joshua, I want you to have the priests come forward, bring the Ark of the Covenant, and I want them just to begin crossing the river. And it says it was the harvest season. The Jordan River is like overflowing its banks. It's fast, it's deep, so much going on. And as soon as their feet touch the water begins to back up. And it backed up a ways down to a little town called Adam. And they crossed over. The rest of the water flowed back all the way down to the Dead Sea, and it's dry. And they crossed over near the town of Jericho. And so while that's happening, the priests are holding the Ark of the Covenant, and they're standing on dry ground. And they waited there till the whole nation of Israel crosses the Jordan on dry ground. So I want us to kind of gather our head around a simple idea. It's just this. See, it isn't about figuring out Moses' solutions and all of these things. See, it isn't about what's going to happen. How's it going to go down? How's it going to work? It's about recognizing God's goodness. It's about recognizing God's goodness, not what happened. God's strength, God's power, God's provision, and more than anything else, God's salvation. Water is just the theme, but it's God who makes a way when there seems to be no way. He does with the water what he wants to do with the water. But our series of stories, these accounts, tell us that the commonality in all of this is he saves people. He saves people. Everything he did was with one purpose in mind, to make them his own. That's always been his purpose. You're going to be my people. I want you to be my own. And they're stiff-necked and they won't do it. And over this time, every course correction and every miracle and every discipline to simply make them his own. So much metaphor to be found in this. And each account of his work in his people literally bleeds over into my story. How is that? There's a verse that moves me no end when I partner it with everything that we've observed so far this morning. Jesus is on that cross, and he's endured more than man has ever endured. All for you. It's all for me. And now he's dead. He's literally committed his spirit to his Father. But there's a guard there who just wants to make sure of it. And so it tells us in John chapter 19 and verse 34, one of the soldiers pierced his side with a spear, and immediately blood and water flowed out. It's over. It's over. You know, medically, we're told that basically Jesus dies from a ruptured or a broken heart. And again, the idea is that he did it so he could make us his own. The theme of God's work on behalf of people culminates here. He poured himself out for me. Paul tells us in his letter to the Philippians that he already emptied himself of his godness to become as human as I am, as you are. And then he emptied his life for me. He rescued me. He redeemed me. He literally reinvented me. And because of his sacrifice, now I'm in Christ. I'm a new creation. Because I thought protecting myself was the answer. I thought that self-care, that self-love would somehow fix me. But when I think that way, my heart actually drifts away from his heart. And somehow, way back in the day, he was able to get through to a lost and a wandering 16-year-old kid. And Jesus is pictured as a rock in more than one place in the scriptures. And he was beaten for you and for me. And the result is that he poured his life into my life. He filled a dry and an empty and a wasted cup. And at the end of an evening service in 1972, I did the most classic thing that you can do. I got up out of my seat at church, and I walked to the front of the room, and I got on my knees, and my heart cried out for him to meet me there, to save me, to change me, to forgive me. And he did just that. Why? Because he was faithful to forgive me of my sins and to cleanse me from all the unrighteousness of my life. But here's the thing. In that moment, when time seemed to stand still, when tears represent my cleansing, I really wasn't even thinking about heaven at all. I wasn't looking for some kind of fire insurance. I just knew I needed to be his. No real idea that I stood at the Jordan with no way to cross. And Jesus was on my mind, and he was in my heart, because now I mattered to someone, the someone. But skip ahead in time a little bit. And at some point, he reminds me, I do have a place in heaven. And I got it. I understood it. I'm not just his in the here and now. I'm his for eternity. And over time, I've keyed in more and more and more on this idea, maybe because I might be getting closer to it than I realize. But the idea is just this. I'm on this side of the river. I'm journeying. I'm working my way to the edge. I'm headed for the shore. But it's moving really fast. It's pretty stinking deep. I have no idea what to do next. But God, Jesus has provided the one and only way to get over. He made a way where there seemed to be no way. He erased my sin. He erased my separation. And I am my beloved's, and he's mine. And one day, I'm going to cross over. I even have a music playlist entitled Heaven. Just all songs about just that, my eternal home. And sometimes I turn it on and I just listen and I get a little lost in it. It's just one small reminder that I have a hope and a future. One of my favorite songs in that regard is by one of my favorite singer-songwriters, David Wilcox. And he has a song entitled Furthest Shore. Here's some lyrics. We were there in the woods by the water. We left our packs up against that willow tree. We dove right in, keeping just what we were born with, our memories, knowledge, and dreams. As I swam away from our possessions, I imagined that they were gone forevermore. And for once, I was glad that all I treasured would still be with me as I reached the other shore. So, let me dive into the water, leave behind all that I've worked for, accept what I remember and believe. And when I stand on the farthest shore, I will have all that I need. Another favorite song, old school group named Dogwood. It says, I'm going to leave my troubles on this side of the river. I'm going to lay them down, never pick them up again. And when I get to the other side of the river, I know I'm never going to see my troubles again. God has created a way where there seemed to be no way, to be eternally known, to be forever in his presence. And so this morning, if you feel like you're over your head today, like you might drown, like the storm is winning, take this in. Hide it in your heart. Jesus has set your feet on this journey, and he has promised that your journey will end on the other side. And when I get to that other side, I give this some thought. I kind of think I'm going to ask him for the Peter plan. Breakfast on the shore, time to talk, forever with him. Maybe you feel like you're floating in the reeds or up against insurmountable odds in front and behind you. Or your soul is just so parched, it's just so thirsty. Maybe you're unsure regarding how you're going to cross over the water to your forever with Jesus. You've just struggled with the stuff of life, the pain and the hopelessness and the fear and the abandonment and the failures and the bad decisions, the stuff that prevents your heart from connecting to his heart. It's the S word, sin. Nobody wants to think about it. Nobody wants to mention it. But dealing with that is the first step towards health and wholeness and healing. Because whatever has separated you from God this morning can be brought to the foot of that cross where the water and the blood was poured out for you. And God can whisper to your heart. He's going to say, I know the water looks chaotic and you see no way to get across, but I want you to cross over anyway. But it's going to take a step. You're going to have to take the first step, and then I can dry it up and you can get past. It'll require trusting me. And you're going to find that as you take the first step toward him, he will be Lord of the waters. He'll change your life. He'll set in motion your journey, your walk, removing the chaotic waters of your past and filling your painfully dry cup with new living water, giving you a hope, a future, a promised land, as it were. Would you pray with me? Jesus, we're so grateful. We're so thankful to you. It isn't really about the means by which you make a way. It's about the fact that you are the way. Your truth. You are life. You are everything to us. Lord, even in this moment, people in a living room, in a TV room, sitting computer, phone, earbuds, whatever it is that's their mode of listening this morning. Your Holy Spirit can transcend time and space and distance and geography, and you can invade their hearts and you can show them the truth that you have loved them with an everlasting love, and that your heart is to reunite with their heart, and one day to bring them over to the other side to be with you in all of eternity. Thank you for that work. Thank you for who you are. Amen. So maybe you've made this decision to seek his heart now, to seek his forgiveness. If that's the case, would you just take a few minutes and go to summitchurchnw.com, and at the top of our homepage, you'll find a link that says Connect Card. And would you just let us know about your decision? And one of our pastors would very much like to make contact, just to talk and to pray with you about your new life. Well, every week we finish with a benediction. This week is no different. And so now, Lord, may the Lord who lifts us from the waters draw your hearts much closer to his, and may you experience his embrace and his love in every way. God bless you, Summit Church. Have a great week in the Lord.
Thank you for joining us online today. We hope that you felt encouraged or were impacted in some way throughout service. If something from worship or the message is stirring your heart, or maybe God is just prompting you to take some next steps in your faith, I just want to invite you to fill out an online Connect card, and our team would love to come alongside of you in that. Here at Summit, we believe that walking and living in community is vital to our walk with Jesus. If you're local, I want to invite you to join us here in person at Summit. And if you aren't local, I just want to encourage you to get planted into a local church. We love you so much. Have a great week.